this is a really important question. I think what we need to understand is what causes dementia and when do we treat it. And I think what's important to understand is that as we get more familiar with dementia, we realize that there are multiple causes of dementia. And while, you know, Alzheimer's disease is really important, this conference and other conferences like it are looking at other factors. Vascular disease being probably the second most common cause, maybe the third, but certainly important. But then the question becomes, when do we treat it? Do we treat it when people have no symptoms and we use some kind of marker that we have available to us to detect the earliest changes? If that's the case, what is that marker? And what do we use to test if that marker is really going to be important to preventing the dementia? And that means that there are a lot of questions that still need to be answered. I think this is a critical question, because when we look at risk factors for dementia at the population level, it comes out over and over again that there are vascular risk factors. So hypertension, diabetes, exercise, diet, all of these things are related to vascular disease in one way or the other. So why is that? Why are they the ones that cause dementia? And why is it when we treat your high blood pressure when you're 80 years old, it doesn't seem to have any impact on your dementia? And I think the answer becomes we have to be able to get to the disease in the blood vessels before it happens. So my feeling is that where we need to be focused on are people who are getting evaluated for vascular risk at age 20, 30, 40, and ask, can we see changes in the brain? There's early evidence that suggests that already is, that hypertension at age 40, for example, already does something to the brain. But more importantly, okay, what happens if we control your blood pressure? Does that make a difference in how we control your blood pressure? That's just one example. Diabetes is another example. And then the question of things that are health related, okay? So is it that we just have a healthy body, we'll have a healthy brain? You know, I would like to think that that's the case. Is that sufficient? Okay, and those are questions that need to be answered. And I think, and of course, there are lots of studies that are doing that now. And so my answer to your question is we need to start early. We need to test whether treating people's vascular risk through, you know, medications and lifestyle changes will make a difference early on before the dementia happens versus, say, at age 60 or 70 or 80 even. How does treatment of vascular impact dementia? I think it's really important to understand that when you look at these risk factors and you add them all up, they have a pronounced effect. And one study suggested that we could reduce the amount, by just treating these simple things that are recognized but tend to go untreated, we could reduce the prevalence of Alzheimer's or dementia, either one, dementia or Alzheimer's disease, which is a form of dementia. We could reduce dementia prevalence by 25%. So that's how big the impact is, and I think it's significant. The question is, does controlling your blood pressure, does controlling your diabetes, exercise, your cholesterol, all have an impact? We don't know that yet. But then it prompts the question, why don't we do this anyway, right? Well, there's two important consequences to that statement. The first is that, at least in the United States, and I'm sure it's true across the world, is that about 50% of the people who have these disorders are not yet diagnosed. People who are diagnosed, about half of them are not what we call ideally treated. So what I think we need to do is come up with a concept of brain health that involves treating all these factors. So we talk about cardiovascular health, we talk about bone health, we talk about cancer, prevention, but we don't talk about brain health. And I want to introduce that into the conversation. How can we have a healthy brain? I think we start by having a healthy body, and we start by changing those risk factors that we know are related to late life dementia. I think international collaboration is essential. We've been talking about this earlier today. We need big studies. To see some of these effects, we need not just 2,000, 5,000, but maybe 100,000 people. You can't do that in just one location. That's number one. The second is that different people have different expertise. So as we bring diverse people from all around the world and their diverse expertise together, we're more likely to be successful in finding new answers. And then the third is that when we study different populations, because of their genetic, social, cultural backgrounds, we find different things. And the important question is, are there things that go across all human beings, or are there things that we need to be careful if you are in Spain, Nigeria, or Texas, okay? Well, actually, those are two countries in a state. So Spain, Nigeria, and the United States, or Australia, or Japan. But the point being that they may be different, and these cultural and social factors may be as important as, quote, perceived biological factors. Best career advice I ever received was just don't give up. It's a hard row to hoe, and it can be a slog sometimes, and I think that even though what people tend to see, or what we hear in the media is, oh, great scientists doing great work. Well, actually, most of the work is tedious, boring, but the results are very important. And so if you don't get, the right answer, keep working, go another direction, but don't give up. I think that the people who are most successful are people who are dedicated to work against the perceived odds.